In this tutorial, we will add the language selection view to enable the user to set the language for their application. So this is what we will create. We'll be creating this view that includes the languages. So if I want to change the language from English to Spanish, I'll just click on the option and then the language is automatically updated for the application. Within your project, add a new SwiftUI view and call the view language selection view. Language selection view. We can delete the preview. Next thing we need to do is to add an environment variable at environment object var language manager equals, not equals, language manager. So we just create an object variable of language manager. And this variable will be able to access the language manager from the environment using the environment object. The next thing we need to do is to retrieve and store the current language using app storage. App storage my languages var current language string equals local or local current language code identifier. So what that line does, on line 13, if the current language that was retrieved from app storage, if it's nil, then it will supply a default language, which is EN for English. So it just retrieves and stores the current language using the app storage. Next thing we need to do is to create an app state variable that's called selected language index. And the purpose of this variable is to keep track of the selected language index that the user is selecting from the application, such as English, French, or Spanish. And to enable the user to dismiss or close the view, which is the language selection view, we need to create an environment object that allows the user to dismiss the current view. Presentation mode. On lines 20, we need to create a navigation view. And the purpose of the navigation view is to embed the content into a navigation with all of the other elements, which includes the V stack, and this is to display a title, choose language, and choose language is our localized string that we added in our string files. For example, fr.lpog, as you can see, it has a localized string called change language, and this is the name or the word in French. Localize current language. Fonts. Title 2. Just styling the text element. Font weight. Bold. Padding. Top 20. And the next thing we need to do is to create a list. And the purpose of the list is to display a list of supported languages for the application. If language manager.supported languages.count, so going through the array is more than 0. If there's more than one language, and for each 0 language manager supported languages, is going through the array elements. ID gives each language a unique ID, so it can be displayed on the list. Index in. In our closure. So for each language in the array, we want the application to create a button for each of those languages. And each of those languages will include, each of those buttons will include a click event. Let language code equals language manager supported languages index. Get the language code for the selected language using the index. Language manager dot set language code. And what that does, it sets the selected language in the language manager. Current language equals language code. Selected language index is equals to index. Self dot presentation mode wrap value dot dismiss to dismiss the current view. And the next thing we need to do is to display the language name on the actual button. Within the H stack. So we need a text element, language manager dot language display name, language manager dot supported languages index. Dot font dot headline dot foreground color dot primary. Oh, there's an error here on line 49. Cannot convert value of type character to expected string. And that should be selected languages, because we're getting the index, the value from the selected languages array. Supported, that should be supported languages. Dot supported languages. I'll just compile it. And then the next one we need to do is to add a spacer. And the purpose of the spacer is to add spaces between the text, which is this part here, and also an image that we're going to create now. If selected language index is equal to index, image system name checkmark dot circle dot fill checkmark should be a lowercase m, dot foreground color dot blue dot image scale dot large. So what that does, it will display a check mark if the language is selected. Else, display an empty circle. So this is like doing radio buttons. Image, system, name. So it's like saying if the radio button has been selected or not. Foreground color dot secondary dot image scale dot large. Dot padding dot vertical 10. And then on line 66 we need to add on a pair dot on a pair. If let index equals language manager dot supported languages, that should be supported dot supported languages dot first index of current language. So what we're trying to do there, we're trying to find the index of the current language in the supported languages that was selected by the user. So if that's true, then selected language index is equal to index, else if there's some error or the operation couldn't be completed, we need to fall back and use a default value for the supported language. Let default language equals en. If let default index is equal to language manager dot supported languages dot first index of default language that means the default language will be English, so we get the selected language index and make that the default index. Current language is equal to default language manager dot set language default language. And then we just set the list style. You don't have to set the list style, it's up to you. But I just set the list style just to make it a little bit nicer. List style inset group list style, which is the second one. And then we need to add a little spacer to the bottom. And then we also need to make sure that our navigation bar title is also localized. Language selection title dot localize using current language. Display mode dot inline. I'll just compile it again. In next week's tutorial, we will call the language selection view from the content view to enable the user to have full access to the GUI. So that's for next week. Thank you for joining us. If you found this tutorial helpful, please comment, like and subscribe. See you next week.